Now getting into our financial series, Your Money and You, Part 3, Education. Part 3, Education. And by design, I wanted to spend a lot of weeks on the first two parts. That was the scriptural foundation. I wanted to spend as much time in Bible as we could before we got to this stage of the series. This education part, we have part 3 and then we'll have part 4. Part 3 will probably be the shortest section of all 4 parts. But it'll be multiple weeks. I'm not sure exactly how many weeks, 2, 3 weeks maybe. But tonight will just be a short part of this, part 3, education. And the question is, what is money? What is money? Now, I realize I don't keep a lot of cash. I'm sure some of you have cash in your wallet. Russ only carries hundreds. Or was that Larry? No, Larry does 50s. Larry So I don't keep cash. I very rarely have cash in my wallet. So, but what is money? What is money? When you think of money, you might say, well, it's the cash I have in my wallet, or it's it's a measurement. It's an accepted something that I use to buy things, pay for things. Now I looked at 2 different dictionaries. One was Webster's 1820 dictionary. The second one was the modern day Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And Webster's 1828 says that money, this is the first definition of money, coin, stamped metal, any piece of metal, usually gold, silver, or copper, stamped by public authority and used as the medium of commerce. We sometimes give the name of money to other coin metals and to any other material which rude nations use a medium of trade. But among modern commercial nations, gold, silver, and copper are the only metals used for this purpose. Gold and silver, containing great value in small compass, and being therefore of easy conveyance, and being also durable and little liable to diminution by use, are the most convenient metals for coin or money, which is the representative of commodities of all kinds, of lands, and of everything that is capable of being transferred in commerce. The second definition in Webster's 1828 is banknotes or bills of credit issued by authority and exchangeable for coin or redeemable are also called money. As such, notes in modern times represent coin and are used as a substitute for it. If a man pays in hand for goods in banknotes which are current, he is said to pay in ready money. So from that perspective, the definition of money, Webster, this was 1828, so they would have been familiar with any type of notes that you give, any type of paper that you give to pay for something is representative of coin or some other, something else, coin or other redeemable metals, and however it's set up. And so that was 1828. Now today, Merriam-Webster says, something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment. So that's a very basic definition of money. Something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment. And basic. All right, here's some money for you. Why? Because people accept it. People accept it. And that's a debate that goes on. What is true money? What is true money? Because a lot of things in economics, not everything is hard and fast, like this is just the way it always is. There are a lot of things in economics that are theoretical. So, people have different types of theories regarding economics and money and what the best system should be. And that's been something that's been going on a long time. But one thing that has always been regarded as having inherent value, something that's been accepted as money for millennia, is gold and silver. And so we call them precious metals. And I didn't look up this. I might, if I remember, I'll look this up for another time. But I believe it was J.P. Morgan, John Pierpont Morgan, big financial guy, one of the real main influential financiers of his time. He said that gold is money. Basically, nothing else is money. He viewed gold as money. Now, this is someone who didn't just deal in gold, but those who deal the most in gold know gold is the real money. You think of Solomon, how he had gold and silver galore, King Solomon. And why? Because back then that was a great source of wealth. They viewed that as, if you had a lot of gold and a lot of silver, that was a lot of wealth. So the gold standard is a system in which a country's currency or paper money has a value directly linked to gold. That's the gold standard. A system in which a country's currency or paper money has a value directly linked to gold. So in other words, this $50 or this $20 or this $1 is based on the fact that there is some sort of metal backing this. And so what a country will do is they will set the price of their currency based in relation to gold. And so the higher they set the price of gold, actually I'm jumping ahead of myself, I better stop. The gold standard. Now, Nick Lioudis, I don't know how you say his name, but Lioudis on Investopedia, just a basic informational site, says a country that uses the gold standard sets a fixed price for gold and buys and sells gold at that price. That fixed price is used to determine the value of the currency. For example, if the U.S. sets the price of gold at $500 an ounce, the value of the dollar would be 1/500th of an ounce of gold. The gold standard is not currently used by any government. Actually, let me read that one sentence again. For example, if the U.S. sets the price of gold at $500 an ounce, the value of the dollar would be 1/500th of an ounce of gold. The gold standard is not currently used by any government. Britain stopped using the gold standard in 1931, and the U.S. followed suit in 1933 for the most part. That was a big break from gold. It wasn't the final break from gold, but it was the first step in the break from gold, and abandoned the remnants of the system in 1973. The gold standard was completely replaced by fiat money, a term to describe currency that is used because of a government's order or fiat that the currency must be accepted as a means of payment. Now, that's why we've talked about how places aren't even accepting cash, which goes against the government's orders of this has to be accepted as a means of payment. The appeal of a gold standard is that it arrests control of the issuance of money out of the hands of imperfect human beings. With the physical quantity of gold acting as a limit to that issuance, a society can follow a simple rule to avoid the evils of inflation. The goal of monetary policy is not just to prevent inflation, but also deflation, and to help promote a stable monetary environment in which full employment can be achieved. A brief history of the U.S. gold standard is enough to show that when such a simple rule is adopted, inflation can be avoided, but strict adherence to that rule can create economic instability, if not political unrest. And so we'll get into more inflation at a different time. And I'm telling you all this because we need to know the system in which we operate so we can make proper decisions, have an understanding. With knowledge comes understanding. We can't have understanding if we don't know something. And so some of this might be familiar to you, some of this might be unfamiliar to you, but I hope it's helpful. And this is not an in-depth history of money and economies and all that. I mean, there are many books out there, there's a lot of resources, and we cannot delve in. And by the way, I'm not the expert on that. I'm just giving you a lot of the basics that are very helpful for us to know right now. In 1934, the U.S. government revalued gold from $20.67 an ounce to $35 an ounce, raising the amount of paper money it took to buy 1 ounce to help improve its economy. As other nations could convert their existing gold holdings into more U.S. dollars, a dramatic devaluation of the dollar instantly took place. Whenever the dollar price of gold increases, that means the dollars are worth less. So, and I'll show you something here in that in a little bit to show you how that looks on a chart. Gold production soared so that by 1939 there was enough in the world to replace all global currency in circulation. As World War II was coming to an end, the leading Western powers met to develop the Bretton Woods Agreement, which would be the framework for the global currency markets until 1971. Within the Bretton Woods system, all national currencies were valued in relation to the U.S. dollar, which became the dominant reserve currency. The dollar, in turn, was convertible to gold at the fixed rate of $35 per ounce. The global financial system continued to operate upon a gold standard, albeit in a more indirect manner. So there was still kind of a background gold standard among the banks and the governments and stuff. But as far as for me, I couldn't physically take my currency and say, I want gold or silver for this. But it was still back to a certain degree up until 71, and then it got dropped in the 70s. The agreement has resulted in an interesting relationship between gold and the U.S. dollar over time. Over the long term, a declining dollar generally means rising gold prices. So the main way that the dollar is valued now is not so much in relation to gold, but it's also valued in relation to its comparison to other currencies. And so if you, over the last decade, I've looked at this and you would think, wow, our dollar should be in really bad shape. Well, it has continued to decline in value, but the problem, although not as quickly, according to official numbers, not as quickly as maybe was anticipated, although I don't know how much farther down the dollar can really go once we're going to look from 100 years ago and see the decline. But also the countries over the last decade have been devaluing, other countries have devalued their own currencies. So you have a currency war going on where one country devalues its currency. Well, then that makes the U.S. dollar stronger in comparison. So then the U.S. tries to devalue their currency. And why do they do that? Why would they do that? Why would they want to make prices higher for the rest of us? Because the idea is that if our currency is weaker, that makes our exports more attractive to international markets. So we can send more stuff out is the idea, is the theory. And so yes, it might increase some prices here, but it helps our employment because we're making more stuff. That's the idea. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, what we should be aiming for, but as far as weaker and weaker currency. But that is how it works regarding the comparison to other currencies. It does affect profits of companies that do business in other countries that value the currencies. So I'm going to show you a $1 bill here. This is a silver certificate, and the top part said, right at the very top, it says silver certificate. And then right underneath, and you might not be able to read it too well, my laser doesn't work, so I'll just point, but right here above the United States of America, it says, this certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America, then you go to the bottom, $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. So this wasn't viewed as the money, this was just simply a certificate representing the money that was in storage somewhere else. And then you look at here's an old $50 bill. And actually, let's go back here. So over here, it says this certificate is legal tender for all debts, public and private. But it's a certificate, it just represents something. It's dated 1935 or 6, I believe. Can't really read that too well. I think it's 36. So here's a $50 bill. This says at the bottom, the United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand $50. And then right up there, redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank. So in other words, this isn't lawful money. You can redeem it for lawful money. So that's what life looked like on the gold standard. Now here's what our currency looks like. That's at least the $20 bill. And all it says is, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's all it says. This is legal tender for all debts, public and private. It doesn't say you can exchange it for anything. It doesn't say it's backed by gold or backed by silver. $20 will not quite get you an ounce of silver right now. And it won't even come close to getting you an ounce of gold. So think about this, all right? So think about the value of the dollar compared to the value of gold. Now, back when the United States was still on the gold standard, they repriced the value of gold to $35 an ounce. And that was a big jump. Now, in US dollars, the price of gold is over $1,900 an ounce. Now, if the price of gold, or if the value of the dollar is basically you can determine the value of the dollar based on what the price of gold is. What does that say from 1933, 34, when gold was repriced at $35, to now it's $1,900? What does that say about our dollar? It says our dollar's not as worth as much. And I read some financial stuff. I get an email of just some interesting perspectives regarding economics, finances, and the things going on in the world, and especially the country. And there's one particular writer who really has a good mind for this stuff, and he's got a really good perspective. And he believes in the future there could be another price reset, another currency reset, as far as the price of gold. He believes that could be the case. Maybe years down the road, but he really thinks that might end up happening. And by the way, just because we're not on the gold standard anymore doesn't mean countries aren't stockpiling gold. Countries are stockpiling gold quite a bit. U.S. has a huge amount. China's got a huge amount. China doesn't really even say how much gold they have. They've just been stockpiling it. Russia has a ton of gold. Britain has a bunch of gold. Countries are gathering gold. So apparently, they want you to use this, but at the same time, they still see the value of gold. They still know the value of gold, real money. Before Bretton Woods and before the dollar became the dominant currency around the world, the British pound was the dominant currency. What happened to the British pound? It faded off into a bit more obscurity. It's not the dominant currency around the world. I mean, the British pound is still around, but it's not the dominant currency that's the medium of exchange. And so, what everything else is compared to, just as the dollar is now. But don't think that the dollar is going to stay in that status forever either. But we'll get into maybe some more regarding that in the future. But I just want to show you this chart, a couple of charts here, and then we'll be done. The gold standard. So notice this chart. This is from 1 year. I think this is from 13 into 14, 2013 into 2014. And what it does is it shows the blue line is the dollar index, which means that is the price. It's a price that is set based on, or it's a measurement, I guess, of a dollar based on a basket of currencies in comparison to other currencies. I don't completely understand all this stuff. There's a lot of complex things. Maybe some of you know better than I do. But that number on the right, that blue number on the right, or highlighted in blue, 79.925, that's the dollar index. So that's the measurement of how valuable the dollar is compared to other currencies. Gold futures is the price there. The numbers are on the left. And so notice, and it doesn't happen this way all the time, but notice what you see is when the dollar goes down, when the blue line goes down, often the gold line goes up, the yellow line goes up. When the blue line goes up, and especially there in July, you see a really big spike in the dollar index, like the dollar was really strong against other currencies at that point. And so then gold, the price of gold went down. And so sometimes they move in tandem, but they don't. They most of the time move opposite of each other. And you see that especially at the end there, March and April, you see them diverging again. So that shows you a comparison of the dollar and gold. And then here's an interesting chart that was from, it looks like the Resilience Group. I just did an image search, so I didn't really look up. But the source of this information is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So back in 1913, we'll start with $1. You see where the Federal Reserve was created. It went way down is during, especially the days of World War I, the value went way down. And then it bounced back up a little bit toward the end of the 20s into 1930. And then in 1933, FDR made an executive order, issued an executive order that made it illegal to hold gold coin, bullion, or certificates. And so he basically confiscated the gold and said, we'll give you such and such an amount, I think the $35, and so you had to turn in your gold. So that essentially, it basically outlawed having gold, and that didn't last. But then in 1944, Bretton Woods established the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. But notice that it continually, the slide went down. After FDR, it kind of, during World War II, kind of stayed relatively strong, but then in the years following, just continued a downward slide. Why is that? Because this system we have is based on debt. It's based on debt. And so to maintain the war machine, to build up the military, to go to war, it's expensive to go to war. Oh, but there are bankers who are more than happy to lend you the money, or as happened during World War I, World War II. And then also now it's not the bankers so much as it is like the private bankers, the individual bankers, but it's now the Federal Reserve bankers who they lend the money, or they print the money, they create the money, even though Congress is the one who has the power, should have the power to decide how much currency is being created. But the Federal Reserve has pretty much been has been a dominant force in that since 1913. Now, we'll get into the Federal Reserve in the future, but the Federal Reserve has different goals, and they've kind of changed their goals and their priorities over the last 100 years. That has had certain effects on our economy, how they do things. But I just want to show this chart to you to show how going off the gold standard continued the acceleration of the decline of the dollar. And so then in 1971, Nixon closes the gold window, end of Bretton Woods, beginning of the modern day fiat currency system. So that was the hard break completely from a gold standard. And so then, and it just kept on going down from there. Now it's kind of plateaued a little bit, as you can see there, from about 1983, 1993, 2003. But really, compared to what it was in 1913, how much lower can it really go? We're going to hit a breaking point, a tipping point at some point, and but who knows? Maybe it does. It could certainly have farther to fall, but we are, and it's really interesting. And this is so helpful to know. This helps my perspective in looking at world events, and not just world events, but especially American politics, because much of the struggle in American politics and the policies we have, and they're wanting to reduce inequality, a lot of the economics are really influenced by this declining of the dollar. Because when the dollar is declining that much, you hit a tipping point where you just can't make it anymore. Things get so expensive. And just because things get more expensive doesn't mean wages go up at the same rate as the prices do. And so you do have some of those specialized jobs. People get into positions where they can make good wages and they can make ends meet fairly easily. But there are a lot of people that just struggle to, they get a job or they work two jobs and they just keep struggling and struggling. Why is that? Because of the declining value of the dollar and how wages don't always keep up. So then what happens? What is the end result of that? Or what's the natural, I guess, the cause and effect? What's the effect of that? It is you need more government intervention. You need more socialism because you need government to start paying for things that people used to be able to pay for themselves. Why can't they pay for it themselves anymore? Because we live in this fiat currency system that has been devalued over time. The ones fortunate enough to have the good jobs and to have the big businesses where they get easy money as far as the lending and whatever ways they can build it up, but they can consolidate their power, and they do pretty well. And so people look at that and they say, Well, see, capitalism's the problem. Well, it's not capitalism that's the problem. It's a too much of government intervention system, a system of bad decisions, and it's a system of that lends itself to inequality. And by the way, when I say inequality, I'm not talking about that everybody should have the same amount, that we should penalize those who have been successful. I'm saying that people are in a position where it's harder to make ends meet on a regular job and income. But then you have others who they live high on the hog and they have no problem. And so it lends itself to that. So then you have the people yelling and screaming for the government to help them more, demanding the government help them more. So that's a natural effect of that. It's a natural effect. And so right now we've come so far that there's really no easy turning it around. And I don't know, it will be turned around. The system might have to implode on itself. Or there's people who have made all kinds of predictions for years, and I'm not making predictions. I'm just saying, knowing these facts, having this perspective helps us understand this is why the way things are the way they are. And then it should help us to try to maybe prompt us to make good decisions, make better decisions, to just seek the Lord's wisdom in navigating life financially, because that's what we need. We need the Lord's help in that. And in the days in which we live, may get more challenging for people. But we also should still work hard, no matter what the system is like, no matter what decisions are made at high levels. We should be, and that's why we spent so much time in the Bible, is work hard, be diligent. Most of all, put your faith and trust in God. Don't put them in politicians. Don't put them in government. We just need to follow the Lord, work hard, and trust Him to see us through and provide. But that was the gold standard, and that shows the point of this illustration is also just to highlight the importance of the gold standard. Because under a gold standard, prices stay fairly steady. If inflation starts to run up, if the prices get if things get more expensive, well then there's that equilibrium, there's that balance. If things start to drop too much, then there are actions the Federal Reserve may take in, like lowering interest rates, and that's just the system. I mean, it's a complex, convoluted system, let me just tell you. But that's why I'm trying to keep it as basic as I can. But that's where we're going to stop tonight.